The coronavirus pandemic continued to spread across the world, sustained human-to-human transfer outside of China, and officials are acting increasingly concerned. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Martinson. This is your coronavirus update. It's February 4th, 2020. I've titled this piece, Nothing to See Here, and you'll see why in a second. But first, big shout out to everybody who is subscribed and is a subscriber, all the people who've been carrying my work for a long time. This is citizen journalism, as it were, that I'm bringing to you, and it takes a lot to support that. So thank you to everybody who has been supporting it so far. I couldn't do this, obviously, without your support. And I am barely sleeping these days and waking up and just getting to this because this is an amazing thing that's going on. First, let's start here. I love this movie from the Naked Gun series. Leslie Nielsen standing in front of the exploding fireworks factory. Nothing to see here. Move along. That's what this is all about. And it starts this morning with this massive market jamming last night by authorities. This is global, and these numbers are a lot higher now. I took this screenshot when I first started putting this together. The Dow Jones and all the U.S. equity indices up strong, but of course the Nikkei, Japan too, huge, almost 2%. Euro stocks, the DAX, which is the German stock market. Imagine that. All the stocks in the world suddenly exploding higher. We can see where it began last night. This is the futures market. So for those of you who don't follow stocks, you can trade stocks through something called futures that don't actually involve the stock market, which doesn't open here until 9:30 in the morning US EST time. But here we see all last night there was just buying. This is enormous. That was 49 points, just massive buying all night long. And why would that be? Well, let's move along here. Chinese stocks did close a lot higher as well. And of course, they just got pasted the day before. And so, big, giant amount. But that's because the Chinese government threw a huge amount of money to support that. And of course, this goes on to note that other major markets also rose while European markets were predicted to open higher. As I just showed, everything exploded higher. Now, why is this? You've seen the coordinated campaign to say things like, oh, this isn't that bad. Hey, it's no worse than SARS. Oops, it's worse than SARS. Hey, it's the flu is actually worse. We've had that meme running around for a while, which I've been debunking for a while. And now we have, oh, look, stocks are higher, which again, I think its prime means is for, and the reason I would be doing this too if I was in the government, I think it's to send the signal to everybody that all is well. That's our prime signaling mechanism. Hey, if things were that bad, why would stocks be going high? Not just high, but blasting higher, bright green. So let's keep going. Nothing to see here. Isn't that amazing? So let's do the numbers. But before we do, I found I got this model sent to me. Somebody had modeled it out and said that it looks like whoever's in charge of reporting from China has been using this model. And so the prediction for yesterday would have been this many cases to 20,346 and this many deaths, almost dead nuts on. So let's hear today, at the end of today, February 4th, this would be the prediction off of this model, 23,803 and 499. Not that these are the right numbers, but that whoever is reporting these numbers out of China has some sort of a formula like this that they're using. So let's see where we are tracking right now by the numbers. Hey, look at this. These are pretty much yesterday's numbers still. They haven't come in a whole lot. 20,528 and 426. Compare that 2528 to this 2346. And what was that again? That was 426 to 427. And this model, I received it yesterday. So that's why this orange line isn't to here yet. These were the predictions for the numbers that were going to come out on February 3rd, made on February 2nd. Sorry, that's when I got the model, February 2nd. So whoever produced this, good job. I'm hoping to locate them because I would love to talk to them and find out more. Moving along. This is something that was written at our site, Peak Prosperity, by Dave Fairtex, one of our contributors, writing down here in his PM Daily Market Commentary. His market commentary is really one of the best. It's political, it's market related, it's all things that are happening in the world. If you want to understand how Brexit impacts things, Dave has some of the best commentary out there. But he made this interesting observation. According to current statistics, as of yesterday, Guangdong had 797, but 0 deaths. Zhejiang, 829 and 0 deaths. The Hunan province is reporting 593 infections, 0 deaths. Henan province, 675 infections, 2 deaths. Hong Kong, 15 infections, and they've now reported a death. Imagine the odds, he writes. With just 15 infections, Hong Kong has now seen 1 death, while in all these neighboring provinces, no deaths or very low deaths. So something is going on here, and we can't really trust any of this data coming out of China, of course. So this is where it starts to get really concerning. This is brand new data. Thailand now confirms 6 new cases, including 4 Thai nationals. Want to see what concerns me about this? Out of these 4 Thai nationals, this included a couple who had visited Japan. There's nothing in here in these cases that say they visited Japan and met relatives from China, or that they had any interaction with anybody from China. All we know at this point is that this included a couple who had visited Japan. It also included 2 drivers who had picked up Chinese passengers in Thailand. So who knows who else those drivers drove around with in their car after picking up these Chinese passengers, or how else that had spread. So this is going to spread much, much further in Thailand for sure. Singapore is now confirming 6 more coronavirus cases, including a first local transmission pandemic. That's the definition. We've got one. So this included 4 Singaporean nationals with no recent travel history to China. No recent travel history to China. So, they say there's no evidence yet of widespread transmission in Singapore, but this is not good news on that front. So this is now spreading, and we're going to expect to see this go a lot further from here. Japan is now having to screen an entire quarantine cruise ship passengers, all 3,700 passengers who must just be nervous as all can be, after a previous guest who didn't have any symptoms while on board tested positive for the deadly virus on Saturday, 6 days after disembarking. If you've ever been on a cruise ship, those are great places to get infected with something. The norovirus is a typical thing, but they're just little floating incubation chambers in a lot of respects. So hopefully these people were using all the hand sanitizer stations that are available, which you should be doing at all times anyway on a cruise ship. But again, somebody who tested positive for the deadly virus 6 days after disembarking, but no symptoms on board. This is what we're concerned about. So hard to stop a virus that has a transmissive phase during the asymptomatic period. And of course, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Move along. But, the Foreign Office in the UK is warning all 30,000 British people to leave China. And so they want to get people out. This is from today, February 4th. This just came out just a little while ago. I'm recording this at, 11:50 a.m. at current moment. So they're recommending that people should leave as soon as possible, but don't worry. Nothing to see here. Just move along. Markets are higher, so let's go with that. I'm laughing because it's just that ridiculous right now, and that's how I diffuse this for myself. All right. We also have in the United States, 2 flights are evacuating hundreds of U.S. citizens from the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in China. They're going to depart for the United States on Tuesday, and about 550 passengers. And of course, they are expected to head to 2 California military bases. So they're going to be put in quarantine, and the CDC and Prevention had ordered a federal 14-day quarantine for those evacuees. The first such order in more than 50 years. But stocks are higher. Did I mention that? So nothing to see here, folks. Just keep moving. Let's keep... Oh, God, it's just piling up so fast. That's why I'm doing this update about 12 hours after I got the other one done. Uber is now temporarily suspending 240 accounts in Mexico over coronavirus fears. So what happened here was they had 2 drivers are suspected to have come into contact with a coronavirus sufferer. I don't believe the drivers have been come down with this, but at any rate, there was a coronavirus sufferer. Somehow they found that person. They're doing this chasing and tracking, which you need to do if you're going to control a pandemic. And they found that this person had taken 2 Ubers. They found those 2 drivers, and then using their technology discovered that there were 240 separate accounts of people who had also ridden in those cars after that Chinese person had been carried around. So those accounts have been suspended, and I guess at least those 240 people can't take Ubers. So there's that. That's an interesting development. Beijing City is delaying the school reopening. So rather than reopening on February 17th, which is still 13 days from now, already they've looked forward 13 days and said, let's just delay the entire start of the spring semester. So that's, I think, indicative of what's going on here, where we are seeing now that China has enough information in hand to say, we're not even going to try and open these schools back up on February 17th. All right, I think I talked about that one. Oh, economic impacts. I can't believe the stock markets are just racing higher in green, and this is why I really believe that you need to understand what's happening here, because this is huge news. Hyundai Motor, big company. The automaker said in a statement today it's decided to suspend production assembly lines from operating at all of its plants in the country due to disruptions in the supply of parts from China, where many factories are shuttered due to the coronavirus outbreak. So there's already supply chain issues. This is a major company making the decision to suspend operations in all of its plants in the country. I think there are lots of supply disruptions coming. I think that you need to be aware of that. I think if there are things that you need or want in your personal preparations that will be sourced from China, that this would be a really good time to figure that out and get those. But don't worry, nothing to see here. Hyundai suspending all of its production simply is an opportunity for other stocks to just bolt higher, I guess. That's the story they're going with. Cathay Pacific is cutting global capacity by 30%, and that's mostly due to a complete drop-off in demand of people wanting to fly to and also from, maybe not from, but certainly to China. All right, the conclusion here today. Between the flu is worse meme that's coming out and the jamming of global stock markets, there's plenty to distract people from what's really happening. And I've just collected a few anecdotes here for you. But I want you to keep focused. You should keep preparing. It's really the prudent thing to do. Again, if the data changes, I'll change. But right now, the data is pointing to sustained transmission outside of China, and it seems to be picking up speed. And that's really important data right now. Huge economic impacts are coming. They're impossible to predict. Who could have predicted Hyundai would be one of the first places to say we don't have enough parts to continue? Who knows who's next? It's really impossible to predict right now. But don't worry. Nothing to see here. It's no worse than the flu, and stocks are green. So this is beginning to feel like a coordinated global campaign to keep people's attention either away from or blunted to the actual data that's coming forward. Again, if the data changes, I'll change. I have a lot more information than this over at Peak Prosperity, and there's a lot of it which is a little bit anecdotal, and but it's starting to pile up. I'm not comfortable making that public, so I am making that available at my site, but it's got to be in a place where we can chew on it sort of in private, as it were. So that's what we're doing there. But again, it's all anecdotal. Some of it will be complete BS. The rest of it may or may not be useful. But it's just the nature of a situation like this where you have to operate with fragments of data. It's almost like pressing your nose right up against a pointillist painting and trying to make sense of it from the few dots you see. But that's what we got to do in a situation like this. So thank you very much for listening. Please spread this information and take action.